Imagine finding out that everything you know about one of history's most towering figures, someone who, sparked movements and literally shaped thousands of years of human culture, is based entirely on a half-remembered rumor, told by a guy who openly admits he wasn't really paying attention.
It's honestly kind of hilarious when you put it like that.
It really is.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome to the Deep Dive. If you are joining us as a fellow learner today, you should know we are steering far, far away from the usual heavy, leather-bound biographies today.
Oh, absolutely. No peer-reviewed academic papers this time.
Yeah, exactly. Today's source material is highly unusual. It's just this single, isolated, almost diary-like text snippet.
Very brief.
Super brief. It's unexpectedly funny, and it serves as this bizarrely perfect window into how the human mind actually works.
I'd say the brevity of the text is actually what makes it so useful as a case study.
How so?
Well, when you strip away chapters of historical context and, geopolitical nuance, you're left with just the raw scaffolding of human cognition.
The bare bones.
Exactly. We get to see not just what a person remembers, but the underlying mechanisms of why they remember it.
Okay, let's unpack this. I'm going to read the entire text aloud, so you, listening right now, have the exact same context that we do.
Go for it.
So, the snippet is simply titled John the Baptist. And here is the text in full. Quote, "Speaking to a friend today, I learned that John the Baptist was crazy and hated. He was not allowed to do something or another, I remember not. Regardless, he was denied on account of some or another defect of the mind, a defect that was truly a defect, and not something adorable, such as musical prodigy." End quote.
I mean, it packs such a dense amount of psychological data into just 3 sentences.
It's genuinely funny because of the staggering irony right out of the gate. We're dealing with John the Baptist here.
Right, a major historical and religious figure.
Yeah, you expect this intense discussion of first-century theology or baptismal rites or his complex relationship with political authority.
And
Instead, the author opens with, "Speaking to a friend today, I learned." They are completely bypassing all established historical records.
just getting their hard facts from a casual chat.
It feels like getting a PhD in history through a game of two truths and a lie.
It really does. But, the phrase "I learned" is the critical mechanism to observe there.
Why that specific phrase?
Well, the author doesn't frame this as a passing rumor or some unsubstantiated claim. They frame it as the acquisition of concrete knowledge.
Oh, right. It's a cold, hard fact now.
Exactly. This text forces us to look at how humans actually treat information in the real world. In the wild, outside of academic institutions, knowledge is rarely treated as an objective truth that requires verification.
What is it treated as, then?
It functions as a social currency. It's a token of connection that's passed between two individuals to strengthen social bonds.
Okay, but wait, I have to push back on that a little bit.
Sure.
Calling it social currency almost makes it sound, I don't know, sophisticated.
Sophisticated? How do you mean?
Well, isn't this just a blatant example of intellectual laziness? The author takes this incredibly complex human life and distills it down into 2 highly emotional, completely unnuanced adjectives,
Well,
crazy and hated.
I hear what you're saying.
That doesn't feel like currency to me. It just feels like cheap gossip at the water cooler.
Oh, it is absolutely gossip. There's no denying that. But we have to look at why gossip exists from an evolutionary standpoint.
Okay.
Gossip isn't just some glitch in human behavior. It's actually a primary feature of our survival software.
Wait, really? Survival software?
Yes, think about early human tribes. Survival depended heavily on social cohesion, right?
Yeah,
And knowing who was a threat to that cohesion.
I guess that makes sense.
You didn't have the time or the caloric energy to sit down and conduct a nuanced, empathetic review of a disruptive tribe member's childhood trauma.
Right, you're busy trying not to get eaten by a tiger.
Exactly. You needed a fast, reliable shorthand to know who to avoid.
So gossip basically acts as an emotional compression algorithm.
Oh, that is a highly accurate way to visualize it.
You take a massive, complicated file like an entire human life, and you zip it down into a tiny, easily transmittable warning label.
Yes. The labels crazy and hated are essentially social warning signs. They signal to the listener, this person is an outcast, and aligning with them carries social risk.
Wow, so the friend wasn't transmitting historical data at all.
Because historical data doesn't keep you safe in a social hierarchy. Judgment keeps you safe. When we gossip, we are constantly mapping the boundaries of acceptable behavior within our group.
Which totally explains why we don't gossip about, tax policy or agricultural yields.
Right. Nobody cares about that at the water cooler.
We gossip about who broke the rules and who was mad at whom. The gossip mill just chewed up a monumental historical icon and spit him out as just some guy who failed to navigate his social circle.
Exactly.
But that raises a glaring contradiction in the text for me.
Which is?
If our brains are so highly tuned to track rule breakers and social threats to keep us safe, why does the author immediately admit they have no idea what rule was actually broken?
Now you are hitting on the central tension of the second sentence.
Let me read it again because this is the part that really fascinates me. The author writes, "He was not allowed to do something or another, I remember not."
It's so blunt.
Right. They are supremely confident about the heavy emotional judgments. He was crazy, he was hated. But they instantly confess total ignorance regarding the actual facts.
Yeah.
They don't even try to fake it, just I remember not.
What's fascinating here is that this is a textbook demonstration of a cognitive shortcut known as the effective heuristic.
The effective heuristic. Okay, break that down for us.
To understand the mechanics here, we have to look at how the brain processes and stores data. The brain is not a filing cabinet where all documents are treated equally.
Obviously not, considering how often I forget where I put my keys.
Exactly. It prioritizes information based on its emotional resonance.
Walk me through the actual mechanics of that. Like, how does the brain actively delete a specific fact, but permanently keep a feeling?
It mostly comes down to the amygdala, which is a small almond-shaped structure deep in the brain that processes emotional responses, particularly fear and threat detection.
Okay, the amygdala.
Got it. When the author's friend tells the story of John the Baptist, the words hated and crazy stimulate the amygdala.
They trigger an alarm.
Right. The brain tags those emotional states with a high priority marker because, historically speaking, hatred and erratic behavior are things you need to pay attention to in order to survive.
Sure.
But the specific procedural rule John broke, what he was not allowed to do, that doesn't trigger the amygdala at all. It's just neutral data.
So I'm picturing the amygdala as this highly subjective, overly dramatic movie editor.
Okay, I like that analogy. Let's go with it.
So the editor is given hundreds of hours of raw footage from a documentary, right? But instead of cutting together a balanced, factual narrative...
They just go for the action.
Exactly. The editor just splices together all the explosions, the shouting matches, and the car chases, and then literally throws the dialogue and the plot exposition straight into the trash.
Yes. And the reason the editor throws the dialogue in the trash is because storing it costs too much energy.
Energy, like literally physical energy.
Yes. The human brain consumes a massive amount of our body's metabolic energy. It has to be ruthlessly efficient.
I see.
Maintaining a factual anchor like remembering the specific socio-political regulations of first-century Judea that requires continuous cognitive effort.
Which a brain doesn't want to spend.
Right. But holding on to a generalized emotional vibe, that requires almost none. Neuroplasticity ensures that the neural pathways we don't use regularly are just pruned away.
So the facts degrade quickly, but the emotional threat label remains completely intact.
Exactly.
You know, that dynamic is incredibly relevant for you listening to this deep dive right now as you navigate the modern information landscape.
You're really...
Think about how we consume the daily news cycle or, just scroll through a social media feed. We read a headline designed to make us furious.
Clickbait, essentially.
Right. We feel that spike of adrenaline. And then 3 hours later, we can vividly recall exactly how angry we were and who we were angry at.
Oh, absolutely.
But if a coworker asks for the specific policy details outlined in the article, we are right there with the author of this text. We just shrug and say, they did something or another, I remember not.
It's so true. The factual architecture supporting our outrage vanishes, but the outrage itself becomes a permanent fixture of our worldview.
That's a little terrifying.
This snippet really holds up a mirror to that cognitive flaw. We assume we are these rational creatures making decisions based on cold, hard data.
But we aren't.
Not at all. Most of the time, we are operating on the lingering emotional residue of data we have long since forgotten.
Okay, let's follow the logic of that movie editor in the brain. Because the editor didn't throw everything out.
True.
The author forgot the rule John broke, but they stubbornly retained a very specific, highly philosophical distinction about why he was denied.
Which brings us to the final sentence.
And frankly, the most biting sentence in the text.
The distinction between types of mental defects.
Yes. Let me read it again. The text reads, regardless, he was denied on account of some or another defect of the mind. A defect that was truly a defect, and not something adorable, such as musical prodigy.
A sharp pivot.
Very sharp. The author pivots from this comedic memory lapse into a razor-sharp critique of social conformity.
Yeah, the author identifies this complex transactional system that society uses to handle neurodivergence and mental variation.
A transactional system. I want to dig into that. Because when I read the phrase, not something adorable, such as musical prodigy, my mind immediately went to the modern concept of the talent tax.
The talent tax.
Yeah. It feels like if your brain operates outside the standard neurotypical baseline, society demands that you pay tax for your existence.
How do you define that tax in this context?
Well, you have to pay society back in the form of extreme utility or entertainment. We see this constantly in pop culture and the tech industry.
Yeah, for sure.
We obsess over the quirky detective character who is entirely socially isolated and blunt, maybe even rude.
But we excuse it because he can solve a murder in 5 minutes.
Exactly. Or we look at a billionaire tech founder who exhibits deeply erratic behavior, and society says, oh, look at their eccentricities. Isn't that a fascinating byproduct of their genius?
Right. Society decides the mental difference is adorable because it yields a high return on investment.
Yes.
The mechanics behind that societal transaction are really rooted in a demand for predictability.
Predictability.
Yes. Human systems, whether that is an ancient village, a medieval court, or a modern corporate office, they are all built on assembly line predictability. We need people to behave in expected ways so the system runs smoothly.
So everyone stays in their lane.
Right. When someone presents with a mental variation, they introduce friction and unpredictability into the system.
And systems hate friction.
Systems reject friction entirely unless the friction produces a highly valuable byproduct.
So the symphony.
Exactly. A musical prodigy represents a neurological variation, but the byproduct, a beautiful symphony, is something the system can consume, commodify, and enjoy.
Wow.
Therefore, the system recategorizes the defect as a quote-unquote gift. The unpredictability is tolerated because the capital generated by the individual outweighs the social friction they cause.
But the author points out the terrifying inverse of that equation. What happens when a person's mental variation doesn't produce a symphony?
Right.
What happens when it doesn't build a massive tech company?
Then they possess what the author bluntly calls a true defect.
A true defect.
Yes. A true defect in the mechanics of societal judgment is simply a mental variation that offers zero return on investment to the surrounding community.
That's just raw struggle.
It is raw struggle. It is uncomfortable, it is disruptive, and crucially, it cannot be commodified.
And the text explicitly outlines the punishment for that. The author says John the Baptist was denied on account of this true defect.
Yeah.
That word denied is chilling in this context.
It really is.
It doesn't just mean people disagreed with him. It implies a structural stripping away of agency. You are denied a seat at the table. You are denied employment, community support, and ultimately a place in society.
And if we look at the historical reality of the figure mentioned, John the Baptist was imprisoned and eventually executed.
Right.
Being denied is a massive understatement of his actual fate.
Seriously.
But the author's phrasing strips away the grand theological martyrdom usually associated with his death. Instead, it frames his historical suffering through a purely sociological lens.
It's so mundane.
Exactly. It suggests his ultimate rejection wasn't just about religious doctrine. It was a tragic, ordinary consequence of possessing a mind that society found disruptive rather than useful.
It really makes you wonder how the narrative would have shifted if he had possessed a more palatable quirk.
Interesting point.
Like if his specific manifestation of different thinking had been playing an instrument beautifully instead of, wandering the desert shouting at authority figures.
Yeah.
History might not have labeled him crazy and hated. He might have just been considered an eccentric artist.
Well, eccentricity is merely the sanitized vocabulary society applies to a mental variation it has successfully commodified.
Oh, that is so well put.
The author recognizes this hypocrisy clearly. They use the word adorable with a heavy dose of sarcasm to highlight how arbitrary and transactional our empathy really is.
We basically draw an artificial line in the sand.
We do. On one side, we place the acceptable, productive differences. On the other side, we place the behaviors that result in a person being structurally denied.
It is truly remarkable how much depth we have managed to extract from 3 sentences of vague hearsay.
It really is.
We began this deep dive looking at a guy essentially saying, I heard from a buddy that this historical figure was crazy, I don't really know why.
Yeah.
But the author's brain, that highly subjective movie editor we talked about, kept the only piece of the story that actually mattered.
Exactly.
They lost the historical trivia. but they perfectly preserve a profound observation about the cruelty of human judgment.
The analysis of unexpected informal sources often yields the clearest view of human nature.
Because it's not filtered.
Right. Formal history is curated, it's polished, and it's presented with an agenda. Casual communication reveals the bare, unedited mechanics of how we process information, how we rely on emotional heuristics, and how we measure the worth of those around us.
So what does this actually mean for you, the listener? The value of a deep dive like this isn't just in analyzing some anonymous author. It is in turning the concepts back on our own lives.
Absolutely.
This bizarre little text acts as a mirror for your own daily interactions. We all have those speaking to a friend today moments.
And the challenge is to observe your own cognitive mechanics in real time. When you consume information, are you actively fighting the effective heuristic?
Or are you just letting the movie editor run wild?
Right. Are you allowing the factual architecture to degrade while you comfortably hold on to the outrage?
It asks you to confront your own social transactions too. When you encounter someone who disrupts the predictability of your day, how quickly do you demand a talent tax?
It's a tough question.
Do you reserve your empathy only for the adorable quirks that entertain you, while turning away from the friction of what this text calls a true defect?
It is uncomfortable to ask, but it is necessary if we want to be more than just nodes in a gossip network passing along judgments.
Well said.
It forces a reevaluation of our own legacies as well.
Wait, what do you mean by that?
Well, think about the mechanics of memory we have mapped out today. A complex human life was passed through the filter of a friend, subjected to the amygdala's editing process, stripped of its context, and reduced to an emotional label and a philosophical observation.
The ultimate compression algorithm.
Indeed. So as a towering historical legacy can be boiled down into a half-remembered anecdote about a true defect, it leaves us with a fascinating, somewhat unsettling question to consider.
I'm listening.
Years from now, when the immense complexity, the nuances, and the daily facts of your own life are subjected to that exact same mechanism of human memory, what single, stripped-down emotional detail will be the only thing that survives the ultimate game of telephone?
Will you be remembered for the specific rules you followed? Or just the feeling you left behind? Wow. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.